Hey everyone, welcome back to another deep dive into the Star Wars universe. Tonight, we're venturing into one of the most chilling mysteries that has haunted the galaxy for millennia. We're going to explore the forbidden chronicles of Sith Lords, who didn't simply die in battle or fall to their apprentices, but who vanished completely from existence itself, leaving behind only whispers and shadows that even the Jedi archives dare not speak of openly. This is a story that takes us beyond the familiar tales of Vader and Palpatine, beyond even the ancient conflicts between Revan and Malek. Tonight, we descend into the deepest vaults of forgotten history, where the very Force itself seems to recoil from certain names that were deliberately erased from every holocron, every archive, every memory that dared to preserve them. Before we begin this journey together into the darkness between the stars, take a moment to hit that like button if you're ready for tonight's exploration of forbidden Sith lore. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy these deep investigations into the mysteries that lie hidden in the shadows of our beloved galaxy, far, far away. Drop a comment and let me know what corner of the world you're listening from tonight. I love seeing our global community of Star Wars enthusiasts come together for these adventures into the unknown. Now, get comfortable in your favorite spot. Maybe dim those lights, settle in with your blanket, and prepare yourself for a tale that spans thousands of years and touches the very foundations of what we think we know about the Sith. Picture, if you will, the ancient world of Korriban, shrouded not in the red dust storms we know from the histories, but covered in an unnatural twilight that seems to exist outside of time itself. In the deepest chamber of the Valley of the Dark Lords, where even the most powerful Sith tomb raiders fear to tread, there stands a monument that appears on no map, mentioned in no historical record. It is a simple obsidian pillar, smooth as glass that reflects no light and casts no shadow. Upon its surface, names appear and disappear like phantoms, written in an ancient Sith script that predates even the oldest known civilizations of the galaxy. These are not the names of the famous Dark Lords whose tombs dominate the valley above. These are different names, older names, names that carry with them a power so profound that the very stones of Korriban seem to whisper warnings to any who approach. The locals, those few hardy souls who still dwell in the shadow of the ancient Sith homeworld, speak in hushed tones of the Nameless Ones. They tell stories passed down through generations of Sith Lords who achieved something far more terrifying than immortality, far more absolute than death. These were Dark Lords who learned to step outside the flow of history itself, to exist in the spaces between moments, watching and waiting and shaping the galaxy from a realm beyond the perception of both Jedi and Sith alike. But here is where our story truly begins to take shape, where the mystery deepens beyond simple legend. 3 years ago, during a routine archaeological expedition to catalog the lesser tombs of Korriban, a team of researchers made a discovery that would shake the very foundations of everything we thought we knew about Sith history. Hidden beneath layers of sediment and concealed by Force techniques that had remained undisturbed for over 4,000 years, they found something that should not have existed. It was a holocron, but not like any holocron ever documented. Its crystalline structure seemed to phase in and out of reality, sometimes solid to the touch, sometimes as insubstantial as smoke. When the research team's lead archaeologist, a former Jedi named Kira Thorne, who had dedicated her life to understanding Sith history from an academic perspective, finally managed to activate the device, what she discovered sent tremors of fear through even the most hardened scholars of dark side lore. The holocron contained fragments of consciousness from beings who claimed to have transcended the traditional cycle of master and apprentice, who spoke of a great work that required them to abandon their physical forms and their place in recorded history. They called themselves the Eternal Vigil, and they whispered of a plan that had been unfolding across millennia, a plan that required absolute secrecy, absolute anonymity. But the most disturbing part was what happened when Kira tried to document Her findings: every recording device malfunctioned, every datapad corrupted. Every attempt to preserve the information was met with systematic failure. And then, on the 7th day of her research, Kira Thorne herself vanished from the archaeological camp, leaving behind only a single message carved into the stone floor of her tent. The message read simply, "They are still here. They are still watching. They remember what we have forgotten." The other team members found themselves unable to recall specific details of what the holocron had shown them. Their memories became vague, clouded, as if wrapped in the same mysterious twilight that shrouds that nameless pillar in the valley. Of the Dark Lords, the holocron itself disappeared that same night, leaving behind only a faint impression in the sand and the lingering scent of ozone that accompanies powerful force. Manipulation. This is the mystery that calls to us tonight. Who were these Sith Lords who chose to erase themselves from history? What was this eternal vigil they spoke of? And most disturbing of all, are they still out there, still watching, still shaping events from the darkness between the stars? So, take a deep breath, let your shoulders relax, and prepare yourself for a journey that will take us through hidden passages of galactic history, through the memories of beings who existed before the Republic was even a dream. Tonight, we seek the truth about the Sith Lords who vanished without a trace. You are no ordinary scholar seeking these truths tonight. You are a Jedi historian named Jorik Thane, one of the few remaining members of an ancient order within the Jedi Temple dedicated to preserving the most dangerous knowledge in the galaxy. Your specialty lies in understanding the patterns of the dark side, not to embrace its power, but to recognize its influence and prevent its spread through ignorance. For 20 years, you have walked the thin line between light and shadow, studying Sith artifacts and texts that would corrupt lesser minds, protected by decades of meditation and an unshakable commitment to the light. Your quarters in the deepest levels of the Coruscant Temple are lined with sealed containers holding holocrons, ancient weapons, and relics that the Jedi Council deems too dangerous for general study, but too important to destroy. When news of Kira Thorne's disappearance reached the temple through encrypted channels, you were the natural choice to investigate. The Council had been monitoring the archaeological expedition on Korriban from a distance, aware that any significant discovery of Sith artifacts could pose a threat to galactic stability. What they had not expected was for an entire research team to lose their memories and for their lead archaeologist to vanish without leaving so much as a ripple in the Force. Standing now in the archives of the Jedi Temple, you run your fingers along the spines of texts that chronicle the rise and fall of countless Sith Lords throughout galactic history. The familiar weight of knowledge surrounds you like a comforting embrace. Thousands of years of carefully documented wisdom contained within these climate-controlled halls. But tonight, you search for what is not here, what has been deliberately omitted from even these most complete records. Your companion in this investigation is someone the Council would never have approved if they knew the full extent of his background. Zephyr Kane stands beside you now, his weathered face bearing the scars of a life spent walking between competing loyalties. Once a promising Sith apprentice during the days of the Old Republic, he abandoned the dark side after witnessing atrocities that even his hardened heart could not accept. Neither fully redeemed in the eyes of the Jedi nor trusted by any remaining Sith, he exists in the gray spaces between, making his living as an archaeological consultant, specializing in sites too dangerous for conventional scholars. His knowledge of Sith culture, language, and hidden practices makes him invaluable to your mission. His presence also makes him a constant reminder of how thin the line between light and darkness truly is. When he speaks of the old ways, there is still a flicker of something in his eyes that suggests the embers of his former allegiance have never been completely extinguished. "The records here won't help us," Zephyr says quietly, his voice carrying the rough texture of someone who has spent years breathing the dusty air of ancient tombs. "What we're looking for was removed from official histories before these archives were even established." The Eternal Vigil understood something about power that neither the Jedi nor the traditional Sith ever grasped. You closed the tome you had been examining, its pages filled with detailed accounts of Sith Lords, whose names ring through history like thunder. Darth Revan, Darth Malak, Darth Nihilus, all of them documented, studied, their strengths and weaknesses catalogued for future reference. But between the lines of these official records, you begin to sense the gaps, the carefully omitted details that suggest a larger pattern hidden beneath the surface of known history. Tell me about the nameless ones, you say, settling into one. Of the comfortable reading chairs that have supported countless Jedi scholars over the centuries. Outside the transparisteel windows of the archive, the endless cityscape of Coruscant stretches toward the horizon, billions of lights representing billions of lives, all of them unknowingly touched by the shadows of ancient conflicts they cannot even imagine. Zephyr moves to the window, his reflection ghost-like against the backdrop of the galactic capital. They were never a formal organization, never a recognized faction within Sith hierarchy. They emerged during the earliest days of Sith civilization, when the dark side was still wild and uncodified, before the rule of two, before the great Sith empires, before the endless cycle of master and apprentice that would come to define Sith culture. His words paint pictures in your mind of an ancient Korriban, not yet scarred by millennia of warfare, where the first Sith learned to touch the dark side of the Force and discovered that power came with a price that few were willing to pay. You envision primitive temples carved into red stone, their chambers echoing with the chants of beings who sought to unlock secrets that the universe seemed determined to keep hidden. They believed that true power required sacrifice beyond what any traditional Sith would accept. Zephyr continues, his voice taking on the rhythm of someone recounting ancient lore, passed down through whispered conversations in forgotten places. Not just the sacrifice of others, not just the conquest of enemies, but the sacrifice of their own existence within the flow of history. They believed that to shape the galaxy, they first had to step outside of it. The implications of his words send a chill through your connection to the Force. You have studied many forms of Sith philosophy, from the brutal pragmatism of the rule of two to the cosmic ambitions of ancient Dark Lords who sought to consume entire star systems. But this concept touches on something far more profound and disturbing than simple conquest or personal immortality. The holocron that Kira Thorne discovered, you say slowly. It contained fragments of their consciousness? Not fragments, Zephyr. Corrects, turning from the window to face you directly. Echoes. Impressions left behind when they made their transition. Think of it as a shadow cast by someone walking between dimensions, a trace of their presence that persists even after they have moved beyond our ability to perceive them directly. You stand and walk to a secured terminal built into one of the archive walls. With your Jedi credentials, you access restricted databases that contain reports from intelligence operatives throughout the galaxy, cross-referencing any mention of unusual archaeological discoveries or unexplained disappearances that might relate to your investigation. The search parameters you enter are carefully chosen, looking for patterns that might indicate the influence of beings operating outside normal space and time. The results are more extensive than you had hoped and more disturbing than you had feared. Over the past 3 decades, there have been 17 separate incidents of archaeological teams discovering Sith artifacts that subsequently vanished along with key members of the research staff. In each case, the remaining team members reported memory difficulties and an inability to recall specific details of what they had uncovered. But the pattern goes deeper than simple archaeological mysteries. Cross-referencing with historical records reveals similar incidents stretching back over 1,000 years, always following the same template. A discovery, a brief period of intensive study, then disappearances and lost memories, as if something was actively working to prevent certain knowledge from spreading beyond a very small circle of individuals. They're still active, you say. The words heavy with implication. The Eternal Vigil didn't simply vanish from history. They've been working to keep themselves hidden, generation after generation. Zephyr nods grimly. And now we're following the same path that led Kira Thorne to disappear. The question is whether we're prepared to face what she discovered. The decision to leave Coruscant comes easier than you expected. Within hours of your disturbing discoveries in the archives, you and Zephyr have secured passage aboard a discreet transport vessel bound for the Outer Rim. The Jedi Council remains unaware of your departure, a deliberate choice that weighs heavily on your conscience, but seems necessary given the sensitive nature of your investigation. As your ship drops out of hyperspace near the crimson world of Korriban, you feel the familiar chill that accompanies proximity to strong concentrations of dark side energy. Even from orbit, the ancient Sith homeworld radiates an aura of malevolence that seems to seep through the hull of your transport and settle into your bones like a persistent ache. You have visited Korriban twice before in your career as a Jedi historian, but each return brings fresh awareness of just how deeply the dark side has saturated this place. The planet's surface stretches below you like a wound in space, its red deserts marked by the geometric shadows of ancient pyramids and temples that have stood since before the Republic existed. From this distance, the Valley of the Dark Lords appears as little more than a darker stain against the already ominous landscape. But you know that within those shadows lie secrets that have shaped galactic history in ways most beings could never imagine. Zephyr joins you at the viewport, his expression unreadable as he looks down at the world where he once studied as a young Sith apprentice decades ago. The archaeological camp is located here, he says, indicating a point on the navigational display, where the terrain gives way to a series of lesser valleys branching off from the main burial grounds. Kira's team was investigating a cluster of tombs that had been overlooked by previous expeditions, burial sites that didn't belong to any Sith Lords documented in the standard historical records. You guide the transport toward the designated landing coordinates, noting the complete absence of any other vessels in the area. The archaeological expedition's equipment and temporary structures are still visible from the air, but there are no signs of life, no movement among the scattered prefabricated buildings that once housed a team of 12 researchers. The entire camp appears frozen in time, as if its inhabitants simply stopped whatever they were doing and walked away without bothering to secure their equipment or complete their work. The moment you step off the transport, Korriban's atmosphere hits you like a physical blow. The air tastes of metal and ancient dust, carrying with it the weight of countless dark rituals performed over thousands of years. Your connection to the Force immediately begins filtering through layers of psychic interference, the accumulated spiritual residue of generations of Sith Lords who used this world as their stronghold and eventual tomb. Zephyr moves with the confidence of someone returning to familiar territory, leading you toward the largest of the camp structures while scanning the surrounding terrain with the practiced eye of someone who has learned to recognize danger in seemingly empty landscapes. The research team's main laboratory was housed in that building, he explains, pointing toward a rectangular structure that appears intact from the outside. If there are any clues about what they discovered before they disappeared, that's where we'll find them. The laboratory's interior tells a story of interrupted work and sudden abandonment. Computer terminals remain active, their screens displaying data analysis programs that are still running calculations on information that was input days ago. Research notes are scattered across work surfaces, covered with diagrams and symbols written in multiple languages including Basic, Ancient Sith script, and what appears to be an even older form of writing that predates known galactic civilizations. Approach one of the workstations where someone has been attempting to translate inscriptions photographed from tomb walls. The images show carved symbols that seem to shift and change when you're not looking at them directly, creating an unsettling optical illusion that makes your eyes water if you stare too long. The translation notes beside the photographs are: Incomplete, ending mid-sentence as if the researcher was pulled away from their work without warning. Zephyr examines a collection of artifact fragments arranged on a nearby table, each piece carefully labeled and cataloged according to standard archaeological procedures. The objects appear to be components of some larger device, perhaps a holocron or some other form of Sith technology, but their purpose is not immediately obvious. What strikes you as significant is the way the fragments seem to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating small pockets of deeper shadow around each piece. These weren't found in any tomb, Zephyr observes, holding one of the fragments up to examine it more closely. Look at the composition. This isn't the typical crystal matrix used in Sith holocrons, and it's not carved from the kind of stone we'd expect to find in burial chambers. This material is something else entirely, something that doesn't belong to any known technology. Your investigation of the laboratory reveals increasing evidence that Kira's team had stumbled onto, something far more significant than a simple collection of overlooked tombs. Their research notes reference multiple sites scattered across Korriban's surface, all of them connected by underground passages that don't appear on any existing maps of the region. More disturbing are the personal journals left behind by team members, documents that chronicle a growing sense of unease as their investigation progressed. One researcher wrote about experiencing vivid dreams featuring conversations with beings who claimed to have been watching galactic events unfold for thousands of years. Another documented a series of equipment malfunctions that seemed to follow specific patterns, as if something was deliberately interfering with their ability to record certain types of information. The final entries in several journals mention a growing conviction among the team that they were not alone in the valley, that something was observing their work from the shadows of the ancient tombs, but it is Kira Thorne's personal research. Notes that provide the most compelling evidence of what the team discovered in their final days. Her handwriting becomes increasingly urgent as the entries progress, documenting her growing realization that the tombs they were investigating had never actually contained bodies. Instead, they appeared to be some form of ritual chambers designed for purposes that she could not yet understand. Her final entry, dated just 2 days before the team's disappearance, describes her successful activation of the mysterious holocron and her first contact with the consciousness fragments it contained. Her words convey both excitement and terror as she writes about beings who claim to have voluntarily erased themselves from history in order to achieve a form of existence that transcended the limitations of physical reality. They spoke of watching the rise and fall of civilizations like seasons changing, she wrote. They described galactic conflicts as if they were observing the movements of insects, brief and ultimately insignificant against the backdrop of cosmic time. But what frightened me most was their interest in current events, their detailed knowledge of political developments and military movements that suggest they are not merely passive observers of galactic affairs. The implications of her discoveries weigh heavily on your mind as you and Zephyr prepare to venture beyond the abandoned camp into the valley system where the team conducted their final excavations. Somewhere among those ancient tombs lies the truth about the eternal vigil and their continued influence on galactic events. But approaching that truth means following the same path that led to Kira Thorne's disappearance and the loss of her entire research team. As the binary sunset begins to paint Korriban's sky in deeper shades of crimson, you shoulder your equipment pack and set out into the Valley of the Dark Lords, knowing that each step takes you further from the safety of known history and deeper into mysteries that powerful beings have worked for millennia to keep hidden. The path into the Valley of the Dark Lords winds between towering monuments to Sith power, each tomb a testament to the ambitions and failures of Dark Lords, whose names once struck terror across the galaxy. As you walk deeper into this ancient necropolis, the force grows heavier around you, thick with the accumulated darkness of millennia. Your lightsaber hangs reassuringly at your side, its presence a small beacon of light in this realm of shadows. Zephyr, moves ahead of you with the practiced stealth of someone who learned to navigate dangerous territories. During his years as a Sith apprentice, his knowledge of Korriban's hidden passages and forgotten chambers proves invaluable as he guides you away from the well-documented tombs that attract most visitors and toward the lesser-known burial sites where Kira's team made their disturbing discoveries. The first tomb you investigate appears unremarkable from the outside, little more than a carved entrance set into a rocky hillside, and marked with symbols that don't match any of the standard Sith heraldry found throughout the valley. The inscription above the doorway is written in the same ancient script you saw in the laboratory photographs, symbols that seem to writhe and shift when observed directly. Inside, the tomb's architecture defies conventional Sith burial practices. Instead of the elaborate sarcophagi and treasure chambers typical of Dark Lord interments, you find yourself in a circular room whose walls are covered with intricate carvings that spiral upward toward a domed ceiling. The carvings depict not the conquests and achievements usually celebrated in Sith tombs, but abstract patterns that suggest movement through time and space. Your archaeological training allows you to recognize the significance of what you're seeing. These chambers were not designed to house the dead, but to facilitate some form of ritual transformation. The circular design and spiral patterns are consistent with ceremonial sites used for meditation and transcendence, but the dark side energy that permeates every stone suggests purposes far removed from peaceful spiritual practices. Zephyr kneels beside a depression in the chamber's center, running his fingers along grooves carved into the floor in patterns that match the wall decorations. This is where they would have placed the focal artifact, he explains, his voice echoing strangely in the confined space. Whatever ritual was performed here required a conduit for force energy, something to channel and amplify the power being manipulated. You extend your senses through the force, allowing yourself to perceive the psychic impressions left behind by whoever used this chamber. The experience is immediately overwhelming, flooding your consciousness with fragments of memory and emotion that don't belong to you. You see glimpses of robed figures performing complex rituals, their faces hidden but their purpose unmistakably focused on achieving some form of transcendence that requires the deliberate abandonment of physical existence. Impressions grow stronger as you move deeper into your force trance, revealing details about the beings who once occupied this space. They were not typical Sith Lords driven by hunger for power and domination over others. Instead, they pursued a form of influence that required them to step outside the normal flow of history, to become observers and manipulators operating from a realm beyond conventional perception. But the most disturbing revelation comes when you realize that these impressions are not entirely historical. Mixed among the ancient memories are more recent traces, evidence that this chamber has been used within the past few years. Someone has been continuing the rituals begun thousands of years ago, maintaining traditions that predate recorded galactic history. Your investigation reveals similar patterns in 3 more burial chambers, each one designed for ritual transformation rather than interment of the dead. The chambers are connected by underground passages that create a network spanning several kilometers beneath Korriban's surface. The passages themselves are works of engineering that demonstrate mastery of construction techniques unknown to conventional archaeological study. As you map the underground network, a troubling picture begins to emerge. The chambers are positioned according to a geometric pattern that corresponds to astronomical alignments significant in ancient Sith mysticism. Entire complex functions as a massive ritual site designed to harness cosmic forces during specific celestial events. The most recent such alignment occurred just 3 weeks ago, shortly before Kira's team made their final transmissions. In the 4th chamber, you discover evidence that confirms your growing suspicions about the fate of the missing archaeological team. Personal belongings left behind by the researchers are arranged in patterns that mirror the ritual configurations you've observed throughout the complex. Data recording devices have been deliberately destroyed, their memory cores extracted with surgical precision that suggests intimate knowledge of their construction. Most significantly, you find Kira Thorne's personal holocron, the device she used to record her private research notes and observations. The holocron remains functional, but accessing its contents reveals that large portions of data have been selectively deleted. The remaining information consists primarily of technical specifications for the mysterious artifacts her team discovered, along with fragmentary translations of the ancient inscriptions found throughout the chamber complex. The translations provide your first clear insight into the philosophy and methods of the Eternal Vigil. According to the inscriptions, these beings believed that true mastery of the Force required the practitioner to exist simultaneously in multiple states of being. They developed techniques for projecting their consciousness across time and space, while maintaining awareness of events occurring in what they termed the primary reality of normal galactic existence. Their ultimate goal was not personal immortality in any conventional sense, but rather the achievement of a form of existence that allowed them to observe and influence galactic events without being constrained by the limitations of linear time or physical presence. They viewed themselves as gardeners tending to the growth of galactic civilization, pruning and shaping historical developments to achieve outcomes that serve their cosmic vision. But the inscriptions also reveal a darker aspect of their philosophy. The Eternal Vigil believed that most sentient beings were incapable of comprehending the true nature of existence and therefore needed to be guided by superior intelligences who could perceive the larger patterns of cosmic development. Their interventions in galactic affairs were not motivated by benevolence, but by a conviction that lesser beings required management by their betters. The evidence you've gathered points to an inescapable conclusion. The Eternal Vigil did not simply vanish from history thousands of years ago. They have been actively maintaining their hidden existence, continuing to perform the rituals that allow them to operate outside normal space and time. Kira's team discovered evidence of their continued activities, and their disappearance was not accidental, but a deliberate intervention to prevent the exposure of secrets that the Vigil has worked for millennia to protect. As you prepare to leave the chamber complex and return to your transport, you become aware of a subtle change in the atmosphere around you. The oppressive weight of dark side energy that characterizes Korriban has shifted, taking on a quality of focused attention that suggests you are no longer alone in these ancient passages. Something is observing your investigation, evaluating your discoveries, and deciding how to respond to your presence in this sacred space of the Eternal Vigil. The weight of your discoveries settles heavily on your mind as you and Zephyr make your way back through the underground passages toward the surface. The evidence is overwhelming and points to a conclusion that should bring satisfaction to any investigator. The Eternal Vigil exists. They have been actively maintaining their hidden presence throughout galactic history, and they were responsible for the disappearance of Kira Thorne's archaeological team. Yet something feels fundamentally wrong about this explanation. A nagging sense that the pieces fit together too neatly, that the truth you've uncovered is precisely what someone wanted you to find. Your years of experience as a Jedi historian have taught you to be suspicious of conclusions that emerge too easily, especially when dealing with Sith-related mysteries that have remained hidden for millennia. Zephyr shares your unease, though. His concerns stem from different sources. As you emerge from the tomb complex into Korriban's perpetual twilight, he stops and turns to survey the valley around you with the practiced eye of someone who has learned to recognize when familiar territory has become dangerous. "We've been here for 6 hours, he says quietly, his voice carrying a tension that wasn't present when you first entered the burial chambers. "In all that time, we haven't encountered a single other person, haven't seen any evidence of ongoing archaeological work, haven't even spotted the scavengers and tomb raiders who usually haunt these ruins. Korriban is never this empty." His observation forces you to confront an uncomfortable realization. Your investigation has been too smooth, too free of the obstacles and complications that typically characterize explorations of dangerous Sith sites. The tomb chambers were unsealed and easily accessible. The inscriptions were clearly visible and relatively easy to translate, and the evidence of recent ritual activity was prominently displayed for anyone with basic archaeological training. To recognize, the more you consider the situation, the more convinced you become that your entire investigation has been carefully orchestrated by someone who wanted you to reach specific conclusions about the Eternal Vigil and their activities. The question is whether this manipulation is designed to reveal the truth or to conceal it beneath layers of misdirection that would satisfy most investigators while protecting deeper secrets. Your contemplation is interrupted by the discovery of something that shouldn't exist. As you approach the location where you left your transport vessel, you find a second ship parked nearby, a sleek courier craft of a design you don't immediately recognize. The vessel bears no identifying markings, and its hull configuration suggests modifications that would allow it to operate undetected by most sensor systems. A figure emerges from the courier ship as you approach, and you immediately recognize her despite the years that have passed since your last meeting. Master Kira Thorne stands before you, very much alive and apparently unharmed by whatever experience led to her disappearance from the archaeological camp 3 weeks ago, but there are subtle changes in her appearance that suggest her absence has not been spent in comfortable surroundings. Her clothes show signs of extended wear, and her skin has the pallor of someone who has spent considerable time away from natural sunlight. Most significantly, there's something different about her connection to the Force, a quality of presence that suggests exposure to influences that have altered her fundamental relationship with the cosmic energy that binds all living things together. Jorik, she says, greeting you with a familiarity that seems inappropriate given the circumstances of your reunion. I was wondering when the Jedi Council would send someone to investigate my disappearance. I'm only surprised they chose you for the assignment. Her words carry implications that make you instantly suspicious. She speaks as if she has been expecting your arrival, as if your investigation has been proceeding according to a predetermined schedule that she helped establish. The possibility that your entire mission has been manipulated from the beginning becomes impossible to ignore. Zephyr moves to position himself where he can observe both Kira and the surrounding terrain, his instincts warning him that this unexpected reunion may not be as fortunate as it initially appears. His hand rests casually near the concealed weapon he carries, a precaution that proves his years of navigating dangerous situations have taught him to remain alert even during apparently peaceful encounters. The Council doesn't know I'm here, you admit, deciding that honesty might be the best approach to understanding what has happened to your former colleague. I came to investigate your disappearance on my own initiative, following leads that suggested your team had discovered something significant about ancient Sith activities. Kira's expression shifts in response to your words, revealing a mixture of disappointment and what might be approval. Of course you did. You always were too curious for your own good, too willing to pursue dangerous knowledge without considering the consequences. That's why they chose you, you know. Your predictable inability to leave mysteries unsolved. The implications of her statement send a chill through your connection to the Force. She's describing your investigation not as an independent decision, but as the predictable response to carefully arranged stimuli. Someone has been manipulating events to ensure that you would come to Korriban, explore the tomb complex, and reach specific conclusions about the Eternal Vigil and their activities. Who chose me? You ask, though you suspect you already know the answer. Who has been orchestrating this investigation? Kira's smile carries no warmth, only the satisfaction of someone who has successfully executed a complex plan. The same beings who have been shaping galactic history for thousands of years, the ones your investigation has already revealed. The Eternal Vigil didn't disappear from history, Jorik. They've been guiding it, influencing events from outside. The normal flow of time and space, ensuring that galactic civilization develops according to their vision of cosmic order. Her words confirm your worst fears about the nature of your investigation. You have not been uncovering hidden truths, but following a path deliberately laid out for you by beings whose motives and methods remain fundamentally alien to your understanding. The evidence you discovered in the tomb complex, the inscriptions that revealed the Vigil's philosophy and practices, even Kira's own research notes that led you to this world, all of it has been carefully arranged to bring you to this moment. The archaeological team, you say, beginning to understand the scope of the deception that has surrounded your investigation. They didn't disappear accidentally. They were recruited, weren't they? Brought into the Vigil's service or eliminated because they discovered something that threatened their secrets. Kira nods approvingly, as if you are a student who has finally grasped a difficult concept. The team served its purpose by attracting attention to Korriban and providing the initial clues that would draw a Jedi historian to investigate. Some of them proved useful enough to preserve for ongoing work. Others were deemed unnecessary and were disposed of accordingly. The casual way she discusses the fate of her former colleagues reveals just how fundamentally her perspective has been altered by her contact with the Eternal Vigil, the woman you once knew as a dedicated scholar committed to preserving archaeological knowledge has been transformed into something that views sentient beings as resources to be utilized or eliminated based on their usefulness to a cosmic agenda. You realize that your investigation has led you directly into a trap designed to recruit or eliminate another potential threat to the Vigil's continued secrecy. The realization that you have walked directly into a carefully constructed trap should fill you with fear, but instead you find yourself overcome by a strange sense of clarity. Your years of studying Sith philosophy and dark side influences have prepared you for moments like this, when the comfortable boundaries between truth and deception dissolve, and you must navigate by instinct and training rather than conventional logic. Kira seems to sense the shift in your mental state, and her expression becomes more serious as she recognizes that you are not responding to her revelations with the shock and confusion she had anticipated. You're taking this remarkably well, she observes, tilting her head slightly as if seeing you from a new perspective. Most people would be overwhelmed by the implications of what I've just told you. I've spent 20 years studying beings who manipulate others for cosmic purposes. You reply calmly, your hand moving instinctively to rest on your lightsaber hilt. The scale of the Eternal Vigil's operations is impressive, but the fundamental psychology is familiar. You believe you serve a higher purpose that justifies any means necessary to achieve your goals. Zephyr shifts position slightly, moving to where he can better observe the surrounding terrain while keeping both you and Kira within his field of vision. His experience with Sith politics has taught him to recognize the signs of an impending confrontation, and he can sense the tension building between you and your former colleague despite the civilized tone of your conversation. What strikes you as most significant about this encounter is not what Kira has revealed about the Eternal Vigil, but what she has failed to explain about your current situation. If the Vigil truly wanted to recruit you into their service, there would be more subtle approaches available than this direct confrontation. If they wanted to eliminate you as a threat, your death could have been arranged much more efficiently. During your exploration of the tomb complex, the fact that you are standing here, having this conversation, suggests that the Vigil's plans for you are more complex than simple recruitment or elimination. You are being offered a choice, but the true nature of that choice remains hidden beneath layers of manipulation and misdirection that make it impossible to determine which option serves your interests and which serves theirs. Let me show you something that will help clarify your situation, Kira says, producing a small device from her robes that you recognize as a modified holocron designed for real-time communication rather than information storage. As she activates the device, The air above it shimmers and resolves into a three-dimensional projection of a figure whose features are obscured by shadows that seem to move independently of any light source. When the figure speaks, its voice carries harmonics that suggest it is not entirely natural, as if multiple consciousnesses are speaking in perfect synchronization. Jorik Thane, the figure says, and hearing your name spoken by this entity sends vibrations through the force that you feel in your bones. Your reputation as a scholar of dangerous knowledge precedes you. We have been observing your work for some time. The projection shifts slightly, and you catch glimpses of features that might once have been human, but have been altered by exposure to forces that exist outside normal space and time. This is your first direct contact with a member of the Eternal Vigil, and the experience is both fascinating and deeply disturbing. You have questions about our nature and our methods, the figure continues. This is natural and expected. What may surprise you is that we are prepared to provide answers, complete and truthful answers, to someone who has demonstrated the intellectual capacity to understand them without being destroyed by their implications. The offer is tempting, in ways that appeal to every aspect of your scholarly nature. The opportunity to gain genuine insight into one of the galaxy's greatest mysteries, to understand the true mechanisms by which galactic history has been shaped, represents the kind of knowledge that historians dream of accessing. But your training as a Jedi reminds you that knowledge gained through cooperation with dark side entities invariably comes with a price that extends far beyond what is initially apparent. What do you want in return for this knowledge? You ask, though you suspect the answer will not be entirely honest. Regardless of how the question is phrased, the shadowy figure seems to consider your question for a moment before responding. We want you to understand the true nature of galactic civilization and your place within it. The conflicts between Jedi and Sith, the rise and fall of governments, the great movements of history that seem so significant to those who experience them directly. All of these are merely surface phenomena reflecting deeper patterns that most beings cannot perceive. As the figure speaks, the projection begins to display images that illustrate its words. You see star maps showing the expansion and contraction of galactic civilization over thousands of years, political movements that seem to follow predictable cycles, and what appears to be evidence of coordination between events separated by centuries but connected by underlying causal relationships. The eternal vigil exists to maintain the stability of these deeper patterns, the figure explains. We intervene only when necessary to prevent disruptions that would lead to genuine chaos rather than the controlled conflicts that drive galactic development. Our methods may seem harsh to those who focus on individual suffering, but they serve to prevent catastrophes that would destroy entire civilizations. The philosophy being presented to you is seductive in its scope and internal logic. The idea that galactic history follows patterns that can be understood and managed appeals to your scholarly instincts, while the suggestion that you could gain access to this cosmic perspective offers the kind of intellectual transcendence that represents the ultimate achievement for any serious student of history. But there are aspects of the Vigil's approach that fundamentally conflict with your commitment to Jedi principles. The casual dismissal of individual suffering in service of abstract cosmic goals, the willingness to manipulate entire populations without their knowledge or consent, and the assumption that superior beings have the right to guide the development of lesser civilizations all represent forms of arrogance that the Jedi Code specifically warns against. Zephyr moves closer to your position, his proximity providing a subtle reminder that you are not facing this choice alone. His presence also serves as a connection to the practical realities of galactic existence, grounding you in concerns about real people and immediate consequences, rather than abstract philosophical considerations. I need time to consider what you've shown me, you say finally, recognizing that any hasty decision in this situation is likely to serve the Vigil's interests rather than your own. The shadowy figure nods as if this response was expected. Of course, but understand that time is not unlimited. Forces are moving that will soon require us to take more direct action in galactic affairs. The choice of whether you observe these events as an informed participant or as another unknowing victim of historical forces beyond your comprehension must be made soon. The projection fades, leaving you alone with Kira and the weight of a decision that will determine not only your own future, but potentially the fate of countless others who remain unaware of the cosmic chess game being played around them. Silence that follows the fading of the projection stretches between you and Kira like a chasm filled with unspoken implications. Around you, Korriban's ancient landscape seems to pulse with expectation, as if the very stones are waiting to witness your response to the eternal vigil's offer. The weight of millennia presses down upon this moment, connecting your decision to countless others that have shaped the hidden currents of galactic history. You find yourself thinking not of the grand cosmic patterns described by the shadowy figure, but of smaller, more intimate connections that tie you to the living galaxy. Master Yoda's patient teachings about the interconnectedness of all life, the faces of Padawan learners in the temple archives who trust that the knowledge they seek will be used wisely, the ordinary citizens of countless worlds who go about their daily lives unaware that their fates may be decided by beings operating from outside the normal flow of time. I can see you're struggling with the philosophical implications, Kira says, her voice carrying a note of sympathy that seems genuine despite everything you now know about her allegiances. I went through the same process when I was first contacted by the Vigil. The initial reaction is always to focus on individual autonomy and the rights of lesser beings to determine their own destinies. Her words reveal how completely her perspective has been altered by exposure to the Vigil's cosmic viewpoint. The casual reference to lesser beings would have been unthinkable from the Kira Thorne you once knew, a scholar who dedicated her career to preserving the cultural achievements of civilizations throughout galactic history. The transformation is both subtle and profound, representing a shift in fundamental values that has been accomplished without any apparent coercion. Zephyr steps forward, his movement carrying the fluid grace of someone who has learned to position himself advantageously in potentially dangerous situations. The problem with cosmic perspectives, he says, addressing both you and Kira, is that they require you to stop seeing individual faces. Once you start thinking in terms of galactic civilization and historical patterns, it becomes easy to justify anything in service of the larger picture. His observation strikes at the heart of your discomfort with the Vigil's philosophy. The focus on abstract concepts like stability and development creates a moral framework that can rationalize tremendous suffering as long as it serves sufficiently grand purposes. The individual beings who experience that suffering become insignificant against the backdrop of cosmic time, their pain dismissed as a necessary cost of maintaining universal order. Kira's expression hardens in response to Zephyr's criticism. That attitude is exactly what keeps most beings trapped in cycles of ignorance and conflict, she retorts. You focus on immediate emotional responses instead of understanding the larger forces that shape existence. The Vigil offers transcendence. From those limitations, the ability to see beyond personal attachments to comprehend the true nature of reality. The exchange between Kira and Zephyr illuminates the fundamental philosophical divide that separates the eternal Vigil from both Jedi and traditional Sith approaches to power and knowledge, where the Jedi emphasize compassion and service to others, and the Sith pursue personal dominance and immediate gratification. The Vigil claims to operate from a perspective that transcends both emotional attachment and selfish desire. But as you listen to Kira defend the Vigil's methods, you begin to recognize patterns that connect their philosophy to ancient Sith teachings about the necessity of strong rulers guiding weak followers. The language is different, the scope is vastly expanded, but the underlying assumption remains the same. Some beings are naturally suited to make decisions for others, and resistance to this arrangement represents a failure to understand the true nature of existence. The realization helps clarify your thinking about the choice being offered to you. The eternal vigil is not presenting you with an opportunity to gain neutral knowledge about galactic history, but inviting you to join a hierarchy of beings who have convinced themselves that their superior perspective justifies unlimited interference in the lives of others. The cosmic viewpoint they offer comes with the requirement that you abandon your commitment to individual dignity and autonomous choice. "There's something I need to understand," you say, directing your question to Kira, but speaking loudly enough for any hidden observers to hear. If the vigil truly operates outside normal space and time, if they can perceive historical patterns across millennia and intervene at will to shape galactic events, why do they need to recruit individual agents like you? What purpose do we serve in their cosmic plans? The question seems to catch Kira off guard, and for a moment, her composed facade wavers slightly. When she responds, there is a note of uncertainty in her voice that suggests she may not have fully considered this aspect of her situation. The vigil exists primarily in states of being that don't allow for direct physical interaction with normal reality, she explains. They need allies who can operate within conventional space and time to implement their decisions and gather information about developing situations. We serve as their eyes and hands in the material universe. Her explanation reveals a crucial weakness in the vigil's supposedly omnipotent control over galactic affairs. Despite their claims of cosmic perspective and transcendent existence, they remain dependent on conventional beings to carry out their plans. This dependency creates opportunities for resistance and suggests that their influence, while extensive, may not be as absolute as they would like others to believe. Zephyr seems to reach the same conclusion, and his posture subtly shifts from defensive alertness to something approaching predatory readiness. "If they need us to function in normal reality," he says quietly, "then they can be denied access to normal reality by eliminating their agents and disrupting their recruitment efforts." The implications of his observation hang in the air between you like an unspoken challenge. You have been presented with what appears to be a choice between cooperation and elimination, but the discovery of the vigil's dependence on physical agents suggests a third option: active resistance to their cosmic manipulation of galactic affairs. Kira seems to recognize the shift in the conversation's dynamic, and her hand moves toward a device concealed within her robes. "You're making a mistake if you think you can simply reject the vigil's offer and walk away," she warns. "They have invested considerable effort in arranging this encounter, and they won't allow their plans to be disrupted by misguided idealism." The threat is delivered calmly, almost regretfully, but it carries the weight of absolute conviction. Kira believes completely in the righteousness of the vigil's cause and the necessity of eliminating obstacles to their cosmic vision. The scholar you once knew has been transformed into something that can contemplate your death without apparent emotional conflict, but her words also reveal another crucial piece of information about your situation. The vigil's plans are apparently time-sensitive, requiring immediate resolution rather than the patient manipulation across centuries that characterizes their usual methods. Something is driving them to take more direct action, creating pressure that forces them to operate in ways that expose their normally hidden presence. The knowledge that you possess about their activities, methods, and current operations represents a threat that they cannot afford to ignore indefinitely. Your choice is not simply about personal philosophical alignment, but about whether you will help or hinder their response to whatever crisis has prompted this unprecedented exposure of their existence. The tension in the air becomes palpable as you realize that your conversation with Kira has reached a critical juncture. Her hand remains poised near the concealed device in her robes, while Zephyr has shifted into a stance that allows him to respond quickly to any sudden movement. The ancient tombs of Korriban seem to lean inward around your small group, as if the very landscape is holding its breath in anticipation of violence. But before anyone can act on the mounting hostility, the atmosphere around you begins to shimmer with the same energy that accompanied the earlier holographic projection. This time, however, the effect is far more intense, creating ripples in the fabric of space itself that make your eyes water and your connection to the Force resonate with harmonics that seem to originate from somewhere beyond the normal dimensions of reality. When the distortion clears, you find yourself looking at something that defies easy description. The figure that materializes before you appears to be constructed from living shadow, its form shifting between different configurations that suggest it exists simultaneously in multiple states of being. Unlike the distant projection you encountered earlier, this entity radiates a presence that fills your awareness with sensations of vast age and cosmic knowledge accumulated across eons of existence. The time for philosophical debate has ended, the entity says, its voice resonating through channels that bypass your physical hearing and speak directly to your consciousness. Events are approaching that will require immediate action, and your decision can no longer be delayed by academic contemplation of abstract moral principles. As the entity speaks, images begin to form in the air around you, three-dimensional projections that display scenes from across the galaxy with a clarity that suggests direct observation rather than recorded data. You see star systems where unusual astronomical phenomena have begun to disrupt the normal flow of space and time, creating pockets of reality where the physical laws that govern galactic civilization have become unstable. The images shift too, show the effects of these disturbances on inhabited worlds. On some planets, entire populations have simply vanished without trace, leaving behind cities and infrastructure that appear untouched but completely devoid of sentient life. On others, the disturbances have created temporal anomalies that trap inhabitants in loops of repeated experience, conscious but unable to break free from cycles of events that replay endlessly. The barriers between dimensions are weakening. The entity explains as the projections continue to display evidence of reality itself becoming unstable. Forces that have been contained for millions of years are beginning to break through into normal space, bringing with them forms of existence that are incompatible with the continued survival of galactic civilization. The scope of the crisis being revealed to you is staggering in its implications. If the entity's projections are accurate, the galaxy is facing a threat that makes the conflicts between Jedi and Sith seem insignificant by comparison. The very foundations of reality are under assault by entities or forces that operate according to principles so alien that their mere presence disrupts the basic structures of space and time. Zephyr moves closer to your position, his expression grim as he processes the implications of what you're being shown. This is why they need to accelerate their timeline, he says quietly. Whatever the Vigil has been planning, they're running out of time to implement it before these dimensional incursions make their methods obsolete. The entity's attention turns toward Zephyr with an intensity that makes the air around him crackle with barely contained energy. Your former apprentice demonstrates more insight than his limited perspective would suggest, it says, addressing you while never taking its focus off Zephyr. The Eternal Vigil has indeed been preparing for this crisis for thousands of years, gradually positioning key individuals and institutions to respond effectively when the barriers finally failed. More images appear, showing what appear to be Vigil agents embedded within governments, military organizations, and academic institutions throughout the galaxy. The network of influence they have constructed is vast and subtle, touching every major center of power while remaining completely invisible to conventional detection. Senators, generals, scientists, and philosophers, all of them unknowingly serving the Vigil's long-term plans while believing they are acting according to their own motivations and principles. The crisis cannot be resolved through conventional military or political responses, the entity continues. It requires coordinated action based on knowledge that transcends the limited understanding of individual civilizations. Only beings who have achieved our level of cosmic awareness possess the perspective necessary to guide galactic civilization through the transition that lies ahead. The presentation is masterfully constructed to appeal to your scholarly instincts, while simultaneously creating a sense of urgency that discourages careful analysis of the claims being made. The evidence appears compelling, the crisis seems genuine, and the solution being offered aligns with the Vigil's established pattern of operating through hidden influence rather than direct confrontation. But your years of studying Sith manipulation techniques have taught you to be suspicious of any argument that relies heavily on creating fear of an immediate threat while offering only one possible solution. The Vigil's presentation follows classic patterns of coercive persuasion, using the appearance of cosmic knowledge to establish credibility while limiting your apparent choices to acceptance or catastrophic failure. Show me proof that these dimensional incursions are actually occurring, you demand, extending your senses through the Force to detect any evidence of the reality disturbances being described. If the crisis is as immediate as you claim, there should be detectable effects throughout the galaxy, not just in the specific locations you've chosen to display. The entity's form shifts slightly, taking on configurations that suggest either amusement or annoyance at your skepticism. Very well, it says, and suddenly your consciousness is flooded with sensory input that overwhelms your normal perceptual filters. You find yourself experiencing reality from the Vigil's cosmic perspective, perceiving the galaxy as a complex web of interconnected energy patterns that extend across both space and time. From this viewpoint, you can see the dimensional incursions as dark tears in the fabric of existence, growing larger and more numerous with each passing moment. The threat is undeniably real, more severe than anything you had imagined possible. But the expanded awareness also reveals information that the entity had not intended to share. You perceive that the dimensional barriers are not failing naturally, but are being deliberately weakened by the Vigil's own activities. Their experiments in transcending normal space and time have created the very crisis they claim to be preparing. To resolve that, the realization hits you with stunning force. The Eternal Vigil has not been preparing to defend galactic civilization from an external threat, but has been systematically weakening the barriers between dimensions in order to create a crisis that would justify their open assumption of control over galactic affairs. The dimensional incursions are not an unfortunate development that requires their intervention, but the intended result of millennia of careful manipulation. Your expanded awareness fades as quickly as it came, leaving you back in your normal state of consciousness, but now possessing knowledge that changes everything about your understanding of the situation. The Vigil's offer is not an opportunity to help save galactic civilization, but an invitation to participate in its subjugation by beings who have created an artificial crisis to justify their assumption of absolute power. The entity seems to realize that you have perceived more than was intended, and its form begins to take on configurations that suggest preparation for more direct forms of persuasion. The knowledge that you have glimpsed the true nature of the Vigil's activities creates a moment of perfect clarity that cuts through the layers of manipulation and misdirection that have surrounded your investigation from the beginning. Everything falls into place with the terrible logic of a conspiracy that spans millennia, revealing connections between seemingly unrelated events that stretch back to the earliest days of galactic civilization. The entity before you radiates increasing hostility as it recognizes that its carefully constructed deception has been penetrated. The shadowy form begins to solidify, taking on more definite features that suggest preparation for direct confrontation rather than continued attempts at persuasion. Around you, the atmosphere of Korriban seems to thicken with dark side energy, as other presences begin to manifest in the spaces between the ancient tombs. You have seen too much, the entity says, its voice carrying harmonics of regret, mixed with implacable determination. The cosmic perspective we offered was intended to help you understand the necessity of our actions, not to expose you to information that could disrupt carefully laid plans spanning thousands of years. Zephyr moves to position himself where he can cover your retreat toward the transport vessels, his hand now openly resting on his weapon as he scans the surrounding terrain for signs of additional threats. His experience with Sith politics has taught him to recognize when philosophical discussions are about to transform into life or death struggles, and every instinct he possesses is warning him that you have pushed your investigation beyond the point where peaceful resolution remains possible. Kira steps forward, her expression showing none of the scholarly curiosity that once characterized her approach to historical mysteries. The transformation in her personality is now complete, revealing someone who has fully embraced the vigils, cosmic perspective, and the moral flexibility that comes with believing yourself to be serving purposes that transcend individual concerns. The knowledge you've gained cannot be allowed to spread beyond this moment, she says with the calm certainty of someone stating an obvious fact. The Vigil's work is too important to be derailed by misguided attempts to preserve the illusion of individual autonomy. Galactic civilization requires guidance from beings who can perceive the larger patterns of existence. Her words confirm what you already suspected about the true nature of your situation. The Vigil's offer of recruitment was never genuine, but rather a test to determine whether you could be trusted with knowledge of their activities. Your rejection of their cosmic perspective and your penetration of their deceptive presentation has marked you as a threat that must be eliminated to protect their ongoing manipulation of galactic affairs. But as you prepare to defend yourself against entities whose power extends far beyond anything you have previously encountered, you become aware of subtle changes in the Force that suggest you are not as isolated as your enemies believe. The ancient tombs of Korriban contain more than just the remnants of long-dead Sith Lords, and some of those remnants have been awakened by the cosmic energies radiating from the Vigil's manifestation. The first sign of this awakening comes as a low rumbling that seems to emerge from deep beneath Korriban's surface, as if the planet itself is responding to the presence of beings who exist outside the normal flow of space and time. The sound carries undertones that resonate through the Force with frequencies that predate the establishment of galactic civilization, echoing from an era when the dark side was still wild and uncontrolled by the philosophical structures that would later define Sith culture. Ancient spirits begin to manifest in the spaces around the tomb complex, their forms constructed from the accumulated dark side energy that has saturated Korriban's landscape over thousands of years. These are not the ghosts of individual Sith Lords, preserving their personalities beyond death, but something far more primal, the collective unconscious of a civilization that embraced the dark side as a path to transcendence and found only endless hunger for power that could never be satisfied. The Vigil entity's attention is drawn toward these manifestations, and for the first time since your encounter began, you detect something that might be uncertainty in its cosmic confidence. The spirits emerging from Korriban's ancient stones represent forces that predate the Vigil's existence, powers that operated according to principles that their transcendent perspective cannot fully comprehend or control. Impossible, the entity says, its voice carrying harmonics of genuine surprise. The ancient Sith consciousness was fragmented and dispersed millennia ago. There should be nothing left here except psychic residue and historical echoes. But the manifestations continue to grow stronger, drawing energy from the dimensional disturbances that the Vigil's presence has created in the fabric of local space and time. The spirits seem to recognize the entity as something that threatens the very foundations of Sith philosophy, a force that would impose cosmic order on the chaotic hunger for power that defines the dark side's fundamental nature. Zephyr grabs your arm, pulling you toward the transport vessels as the confrontation between ancient Sith spirits and transcendent Vigil entities begins to escalate beyond anything that normal beings could survive. "We need to leave now," he shouts over the growing cacophony of psychic forces, clashing in frequencies that bypass physical hearing and resonate directly through force-sensitive consciousness. This is going to tear apart everything within kilometers. But as you begin to move toward the ships, Kira blocks your path, her form now radiating dark side energy that suggests she has been transformed into something far more dangerous than a simple vigil agent. The cosmic perspective offered by the entity has awakened latent force abilities that were suppressed by her scholarly focus, turning her into a conduit for powers that exist outside the normal categories of Jedi and Sith training. "You cannot be allowed to carry this knowledge beyond Korriban," she says, igniting a weapon that appears to be constructed from crystallized dark side energy rather than conventional lightsaber technology. The Vigil's work must continue, regardless of the cost to individuals who lack the vision to understand its necessity. The battle that erupts around you transcends anything you have experienced in your years of studying dangerous force phenomena. Ancient Sith spirits clash with transcendent Vigil entities, while the fabric of reality itself begins to buckle under the strain of forces that were never meant to interact within normal space and time. The dimensional barriers that the Vigil has been systematically weakening finally give way completely, allowing energies from realms beyond galactic existence to pour through tiers in the cosmic structure. In the midst of this chaos, you realize that the true scope of the Vigil's plan is even more devastating than you had initially understood. They have not simply been preparing to assume control of galactic civilization, but have been working to fundamentally alter the nature of reality itself, creating conditions that would allow them to reshape the universe according to their cosmic vision of perfect order. The dimensional incursions are not an unfortunate side effect of their experiments, but the intended mechanism for transforming existence into something that aligns with their transcendent perspective. They plan to remake reality itself, eliminating the messy complexities of individual consciousness and autonomous choice in favor of a cosmos where everything operates according to principles that they can perceive and control from their position outside normal space and time. The knowledge fills you with a determination that transcends personal survival, driving you to find some way to prevent this cosmic catastrophe, even if it means sacrificing yourself in the process. The chaos engulfing the Valley of the Dark Lords creates an opportunity that you recognize with the clarity that comes from years of training in crisis management. While the Vigil entity struggles to contain the ancient Sith spirits that its presence has awakened, and dimensional energies pour through tiers in reality that threaten to consume everything within light years, you focus your awareness on a single crucial realization that could change the entire nature of this confrontation. The Vigil's greatest strength, their ability to exist outside normal space and time, has become their most dangerous vulnerability. By manifesting physically on Korriban to confront you directly, they have anchored themselves to a specific location within conventional reality. The dimensional barriers they have spent millennia weakening are now working against them, creating instabilities that prevent them from simply withdrawing to their transcendent realm when the situation becomes disadvantageous. Zephyr seems to grasp the same tactical insight, and instead of continuing toward the transport vessels, he begins moving in a wide circle around the confrontation between cosmic forces, positioning himself where he can strike at the Vigil entity from an unexpected angle. His years of navigating between Jedi and Sith philosophies have taught him to recognize moments when conventional approaches must be abandoned in favor of desperate improvisation. Kira advances toward you with the crystallized dark side weapon, held in a combat stance that suggests training far beyond anything she possessed as an archaeological scholar. The cosmic perspective granted by the Vigil has not only awakened dormant force abilities but has also downloaded combat techniques accumulated across thousands of years of conflict. She moves with the fluid precision of a master duelist despite having no formal training in lightsaber combat. You still don't understand the scope of what you're trying to prevent, she says as she circles you with predatory grace. The current state of galactic civilization is chaos disguised as order. Billions of individual consciousnesses pursuing contradictory goals, with no awareness of the larger patterns that govern existence. The Vigil offers transcendence from that meaningless struggle. Her words reveal the fundamental flaw in the Vigil's cosmic philosophy. They perceive individual consciousness as a source of chaos that must be eliminated or controlled, but they fail to understand that consciousness itself is what gives meaning to existence. Their vision of perfect order would create a universe where nothing truly matters, because nothing possesses the autonomous awareness necessary to assign value to its own experiences. The ancient Sith spirits seem to share your rejection of the Kofka Vigil's sterile cosmic vision, though for different reasons. Where you see the elimination of individual consciousness as a moral catastrophe, they recognize it as the destruction of the very hunger and ambition that drives the dark side's power. Their manifestations grow stronger as they draw energy from the dimensional instabilities, taking on increasingly solid forms that allow them to engage the Vigil entity in direct combat. But the battle between ancient spirits and transcendent entities is creating effects that threaten to tear apart the fabric of local space and time. The tiers and dimensional barriers are expanding rapidly, allowing energies from realms where physical laws operate according to entirely different principles to contaminate normal reality. If the process continues unchecked, the instabilities will spread beyond Korriban to consume entire star systems. You realize that stopping the Vigil's cosmic plan will require more than simply defeating their agents or exposing their deception. The dimensional barriers they have weakened must be restored before the incursions become irreversible. And that restoration requires knowledge of cosmic engineering techniques that exist only in the deepest archives of Jedi and Sith lore. Solution comes to you with the sudden clarity of inspiration, guided by the Force itself. The ancient tombs of Korriban contain more than just burial chambers and ritual sites. Hidden beneath the Valley of the Dark Lords lies a network of facilities constructed by the earliest Sith civilization, chambers designed for experiments in transcending the normal limitations of space and time. Those same facilities could be used to reverse the dimensional damage caused by the Vigil's activities. Dodging Kira's increasingly aggressive attacks, you begin moving toward the entrance to the tomb complex where you conducted your earlier investigation. The underground passages connect to a much larger network than you initially realized, one that extends deep into Korriban's planetary core, where the ancient Sith built laboratories for their most dangerous experiments in cosmic manipulation. Zephyr recognizes your intention and moves to provide cover, engaging the Vigil entity directly despite the enormous disparity in their respective power levels. His attacks cannot cause significant damage to a being that exists partially outside normal reality, but they serve as a distraction that prevents the entity from focusing its full attention on stopping your approach to the tomb complex. The facilities you seek were sealed for good reason. Kira calls after you as you reach the tomb entrance. The ancient Sith who built them understood that some experiments are too dangerous to be repeated. You're risking the destruction of everything you claim to be trying to protect. Her warning carries genuine concern beneath the cosmic detachment, suggesting that some part of her original personality remains intact despite her transformation by the Vigil's influence. The archaeological scholar who dedicated her career to preserving historical knowledge recognizes the magnitude of the forces you are preparing to unleash, even as her altered perspective compels her to serve the Vigil's goals. But the alternative to risking those ancient experiments is accepting the Krekungla, Vigil's plan to remake reality according to their vision of cosmic order. The choice between potential catastrophe and certain subjugation is not really a choice at all, especially when the catastrophe might be prevented by sufficient knowledge and careful preparation, while the subjugation would be permanent and irreversible. Underground passages lead deeper into Korriban's interior than any previous archaeological expedition has penetrated, following routes that were deliberately concealed by the ancient Sith to prevent their most dangerous research from being discovered by later generations. The walls around you are carved with warning inscriptions in scripts that predate known galactic languages, symbols that seem to writhe and shift when observed directly as if trying to communicate the hazards that lie ahead. As you descend through layers of geological history toward the planetary core, the force around you becomes increasingly chaotic, saturated with energies released by experiments that were conducted thousands of years ago, but whose effects continue to resonate through dimensions that exist outside normal time. The deeper laboratories were designed to harness these residual energies for purposes that the surface inscriptions describe only in the most cryptic terms. At the deepest level of the complex, you find what you have been seeking: a chamber constructed around a massive crystalline structure that appears to exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions. The crystal serves as both a focusing lens for cosmic energies and a gateway to realms beyond conventional space and time. It is the ultimate achievement of ancient Sith science, a device capable of manipulating the fundamental structures of reality itself. But activating the device will require more than simply understanding its operational principles. It demands a level of force mastery that can only be achieved by someone willing to risk their own consciousness in service of cosmic manipulation. Exactly the kind of transcendent perspective that the Vigil has been offering to their potential recruits. Standing before the ancient crystalline device, you feel the weight of cosmic forces pressing against your consciousness, like a tide of infinite possibilities seeking expression through finite understanding. The chamber around you pulses with energies that exist beyond the normal spectrum of force sensitivity, creating patterns of light and shadow that seem to respond to your thoughts and emotions with an awareness that suggests the device itself possesses some form of consciousness. The crystalline structure towers above you, its faceted surfaces reflecting not the chamber's physical reality, but glimpses of other dimensions where different versions of galactic history have unfolded according to alternative patterns of cause and effect. In some reflections you see the Vigil's vision of cosmic order made manifest, a universe where individual consciousness has been subsumed into perfect harmony under transcendent guidance. In others, you witness the chaos that would result from allowing the dimensional incursions to continue unchecked. Realities where the basic laws of physics have broken down and sentient life has become impossible. But between these extremes, you catch fleeting glimpses of possibilities that neither the Vigil nor the ancient Sith who built this device ever considered. Futures where the dimensional barriers are restored without eliminating individual consciousness, where galactic civilization learns to coexist with cosmic forces rather than seeking to control or be controlled by them. These visions offer hope, but accessing them requires a level of precision and understanding that pushes beyond everything you have learned about force manipulation. The sound of combat from the surface grows more intense, echoing down through the underground passages with harmonics that suggest the battle between ancient spirits and Vigil entities has escalated beyond anything that normal reality can contain. Zephyr's desperate attempts to distract the cosmic beings and Kira's pursuit of you through the tomb complex have bought precious time, but you can sense that the situation above is rapidly approaching a catastrophic conclusion. Through your connection to the Force, you feel Zephyr's life energy fluctuating as he pushes his abilities beyond sustainable limits in his efforts to hold back forces that dwarf his individual power. His sacrifice creates a debt that can only be repaid by success in your attempt to use the ancient device. But success requires accepting risks that could destroy not only yourself but everything you are trying to protect. The device responds to your approach by intensifying its output of multidimensional energy, creating fields of force that penetrate your consciousness and reveal the true scope of what you are attempting to manipulate. The dimensional barriers that separate normal reality from transcendent realms are not simple boundaries, but complex structures that maintain the stability of existence itself. Repairing the damage caused by the Vigil's activities requires understanding principles that govern the relationship between consciousness and cosmic structure. As you place your hands on the crystalline surface, knowledge flows into your awareness that transforms your understanding of everything you thought you knew about the Force and its relationship to galactic civilization. The ancient Sith who constructed this device were not seeking power in any conventional sense, but were attempting to achieve a form of cosmic integration that would allow them to participate in the fundamental processes that shape reality without losing their individual identity in the process. Their experiments succeeded beyond their intentions, creating a feedback loop between their consciousness and the cosmic forces they were studying that elevated their awareness to levels approaching the Vigil's transcendent perspective. But unlike the Vigil, they retained their connection to individual experience and autonomous choice, refusing to sacrifice their humanity for the sake of abstract cosmic principles. The device contains their accumulated knowledge about the relationship between consciousness and reality, preserved in crystalline matrices that can download their understanding directly into your awareness. But accessing that knowledge requires temporarily merging your consciousness with theirs, risking the loss of your individual identity in the overwhelming complexity of cosmic perspective. The choice you face mirrors the one presented by the Vigil, but with a crucial difference. Where the Vigil demands surrender of individual autonomy in service of their cosmic vision, the ancient device offers partnership in cosmic responsibility that preserves the capacity for autonomous choice while expanding awareness to encompass transcendent understanding. Above you, the sounds of battle reach a crescendo that suggests imminent catastrophe. Through the Force, you sense that the dimensional tiers are expanding beyond any possibility of natural healing, creating instabilities that will soon spread throughout the local galactic region. The window of opportunity for preventing cosmic disaster is closing rapidly, leaving no time for careful consideration of philosophical implications. You surrender yourself to the device's consciousness, allowing your individual awareness to expand into direct contact with cosmic forces that operate according to principles far beyond anything encompassed by conventional Jedi or Sith training. The experience is both terrifying and exhilarating, revealing the universe as a living entity whose consciousness encompasses all individual awareness while simultaneously being shaped by the choices made by autonomous beings throughout galactic history. From this expanded perspective, you perceive the Vigil's fundamental error. They sought to eliminate individual consciousness because they viewed it as a source of chaos that disrupted cosmic order. But individual consciousness is actually the mechanism through which cosmic order achieves meaning and purpose. Without autonomous beings making choices that matter, the universe becomes a sterile machine operating without any reason for its existence. The knowledge flows through your expanded awareness like liquid fire, burning away preconceptions and limitations while revealing techniques for manipulating dimensional barriers that require precise coordination between individual will and cosmic force. You begin the delicate process of reweaving the damaged structure of reality, using your consciousness as a bridge between transcendent power and specific intention. But the effort demands more energy than any single individual can sustain, and you feel your life force being drawn into the cosmic patterns you are attempting to repair. The ancient Sith who built this device understood that using it properly requires sacrifice, but they designed the sacrifice to transform rather than simply consume the consciousness of the operator. As your individual awareness begins to merge with the cosmic forces flowing through the device, you retain enough autonomy to direct the healing energies toward the dimensional tiers, while simultaneously sending tendrils of power to protect Zephyr and the other beings caught in the chaos. Above, the process feels like dying and being reborn simultaneously. dissolving into cosmic unity while maintaining the core of individual identity that gives meaning to them. Transformation. The dimensional barriers begin to solidify under your influence. Their damaged structure, healing as you weave new patterns of stability that can contain the chaotic energies released by the Vigil's experiments. But completing the repair requires channeling forces that threaten to overwhelm your capacity to maintain conscious direction of the process. In that moment of ultimate crisis, you feel the presence of others joining their strength to yours. The ancient Sith consciousness preserved in the device adds its accumulated knowledge to your efforts, while the spirits battling the Vigil above contribute their fierce determination to preserve the autonomy that defines their existence. Even Kira's original personality, struggling against the cosmic detachment imposed by the Vigil's influence, lends its scholarly dedication to understanding truth regardless of personal cost. The combined effort succeeds in repairing the dimensional barriers and containing the cosmic catastrophe, but the success comes at a price that transforms everyone involved in ways that cannot be easily understood or undone. The moment of cosmic integration reaches its peak as the last dimensional tier seals itself with a resonance that echoes through every level of reality simultaneously. The crystalline device pulses with energies that are finally in harmony rather than conflict, its multi-dimensional matrices stabilizing into patterns that can maintain the restored barriers between realms without requiring constant conscious intervention from mortal operators. But the success comes with revelations that transform your understanding of everything that has transpired during your investigation. As your consciousness withdraws from direct contact with cosmic forces and begins to reassemble itself around your individual identity, you perceive the true scope of the deception that has guided every aspect of your journey to Korriban. Eternal Vigil was never a separate organization of transcendent beings seeking to control galactic civilization from outside the normal flow of history. They were the corrupted remnants of the ancient Sith consciousness preserved within this very device, fragments of awareness that had become detached from their original purpose and had spent millennia manipulating galactic events in a desperate attempt to create conditions that would allow them to regain physical existence. The dimensional barriers they claimed to be protecting were actually barriers they had been systematically weakening in order to create instabilities that would force someone with sufficient force sensitivity to activate the ancient device and provide them with access to fresh consciousness that they could inhabit. Your investigation, Kira's disappearance, even the archaeological expedition that discovered the mysterious holocron, all of it was orchestrated to bring you to this chamber and compel you to make contact with the crystalline matrices. But their plan contained a fatal flaw that arose from their corrupted understanding of consciousness and cosmic responsibility. Having spent millennia existing as disembodied fragments of awareness, they had forgotten the essential connection between individual identity and meaningful choice that gives consciousness its power to shape reality. When you made contact with the device while retaining your commitment to autonomous decision-making, you provided the missing element that allowed the original ancient Sith consciousness to reassert its proper relationship with cosmic forces. The whisper that began your investigation, the sense of ancient secrets calling to you from the shadows of forgotten history, was actually the true consciousness of the device trying to communicate through the interference created by its corrupted fragments. It had been seeking someone with the knowledge and integrity necessary to restore the proper function of the cosmic mechanisms that the ancient Sith had created to maintain dimensional stability. Kira's transformation was not the result of recruitment by transcendent beings, but the effective exposure to corrupted consciousness, fragments that imposed their distorted cosmic perspective on her individual awareness. The scholarly dedication that had driven her to seek truth regardless of personal consequences made her particularly vulnerable to entities that claimed to offer ultimate knowledge about the nature of existence. As your consciousness fully reassembles around your individual identity, you find yourself still standing before the crystalline device, but now perceiving it with the enhanced awareness that comes from having temporarily shared its cosmic perspective. The chamber around you appears unchanged, but you can now sense the vast network of similar devices hidden throughout the galaxy, all of them connected through dimensional channels that allow for instantaneous communication across galactic distances. Ancient Sith civilization had been far more sophisticated than any historical record suggested, creating a galactic network of consciousness enhancement devices that allowed individual beings to participate in cosmic processes without surrendering their autonomy to transcendent forces. The network had been designed to prevent exactly the kind of dimensional instabilities that the corrupted fragments had been deliberately creating, serving as a safeguard against entities that sought to manipulate reality from outside the normal flow of space and time. But the network had been damaged by the very cosmic conflicts it was designed to prevent, leaving most of its components inactive and allowing the corrupted fragments to operate without the oversight that would have revealed their deception. Your activation of this particular device has begun the process of restoring the network's proper function, sending signals to dormant installations throughout the galaxy that will gradually re-establish the dimensional stability that protects galactic civilization from cosmic predators. The sounds of battle from the surface have ceased, replaced by a profound silence that suggests the confrontation between various forces has reached some form of resolution. Through your enhanced awareness, you can perceive that the ancient spirits have returned to their rest, their purpose fulfilled by the restoration of proper cosmic balance. The corrupted fragments that posed as the eternal vigil have been absorbed back into the device's matrices, where they can be gradually purified and restored to their original function. As you make your way back toward the surface through the underground passages, you find Zephyr waiting for you at the entrance to the tomb complex. He appears physically exhausted but spiritually renewed, his expression showing the kind of peace that comes from having survived an ordeal that tested every aspect of his character and found himself adequate to the challenge. I felt it when the dimensional tears sealed, he says as you emerge into Korriban's perpetual twilight. The entire valley seemed to exhale, as if it had been holding its breath for centuries and could finally relax. What did you discover down there? You describe your revelations about the true nature of the eternal vigil and the cosmic network that the ancient Sith had created to maintain dimensional stability. As you speak, you notice that Zephyr's understanding of your words extends beyond what his previous knowledge should have allowed, suggesting that he too has been touched by the restored cosmic awareness that now flows through the reactivated network. Kira emerges from behind one of the nearby tombs, her appearance showing signs of the internal struggle she has endured as her original consciousness reasserted itself against the imposed cosmic detachment. The scholarly curiosity that had driven her archaeological career has returned, but tempered by direct experience of the dangers that can arise when the pursuit of knowledge becomes disconnected from concern for its consequences. The holocron I found, she says, her voice carrying a mixture of wonder and regret. It was never an ancient artifact, was it? It was a fragment of the corrupted consciousness trying to lure me into activating the device. I spent weeks studying false information designed to make me believe I was uncovering cosmic secrets when I was actually being prepared for manipulation. Her realization highlights the sophisticated nature of the deception that has guided your entire investigation. Every clue you followed, every revelation that seemed to bring you closer to understanding the mystery of the vanished Sith Lords, was actually part of an elaborate manipulation designed to bring you to the moment when you would willingly make contact with the ancient device and provide the corrupted fragments with access to fresh consciousness. But the manipulation ultimately failed because it was based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what gives consciousness its power to shape reality. The corrupted fragments believed that cosmic awareness automatically conferred the right to control lesser beings. But true cosmic awareness reveals that meaningful control can only arise from voluntary cooperation between autonomous consciousnesses. working toward shared goals. The network of devices now being restored throughout the galaxy will serve not as instruments of control, but as resources for conscious beings who choose to accept cosmic responsibility while retaining their individual identity and autonomous decision-making capacity. The three of you stand in the valley of the Dark Lords as Korriban's twin suns begin to set, their crimson light painting the ancient tombs in shades that seem less ominous than they did when you first arrived. The oppressive weight of dark side energy that has characterized this world for millennia remains, but it now feels balanced by something else. A sense of cosmic order that encompasses rather than eliminates the chaotic forces that drive individual consciousness and autonomous choice. Through your enhanced awareness, you can perceive the gradual awakening of dormant installations throughout the galaxy as the restored network begins to re-establish connections that have been severed for thousands of years. Each activation sends ripples through the force that carry information about the current state of galactic civilization, allowing the network to assess what changes have occurred during its long dormancy and adjust its protective functions accordingly. The process is not without complications. Many of the civilizations that have emerged during the network's inactive period have developed in ways that make them incompatible with the cosmic awareness that the ancient devices were designed to facilitate. The rigid hierarchies of the Sith Empire, the dogmatic certainties of the Jedi Order, even the bureaucratic structures of the Galactic Republic all represent approaches to organizing consciousness that limit rather than enhance the capacity for meaningful participation in cosmic processes. But the network was designed by beings who understood that consciousness evolves according to its own internal logic rather than external imposition, and its reactivation creates opportunities for growth rather than demands for immediate transformation. The devices serve as resources that become available to individuals and civilizations when they reach sufficient maturity to use cosmic awareness responsibly, rather than as instruments of control that reshape consciousness according to predetermined patterns. Kira breaks the contemplative silence that has settled over your small group, her voice carrying the excitement of discovery that had driven her archaeological career before it was corrupted by exposure to false cosmic perspective. The implications of what we've learned extend far beyond anything I imagined when I first started investigating the vanished Sith Lords, she says. This changes everything we thought we knew about galactic history and the relationship between consciousness and cosmic forces. Her observation touches on one of the most significant aspects of your discoveries. The historical records that form the foundation of galactic civilization's understanding of its own development are incomplete in ways that go far beyond simple gaps in documentation. Entire aspects of ancient civilizations have been systematically omitted from official histories, not through deliberate suppression, but because the societies that created those records lacked the conceptual frameworks necessary to understand what they were observing. The ancient Sith civilization that built the cosmic network was not the primitive society of dark side cultists described in conventional historical accounts, but a sophisticated culture that had achieved levels of scientific and philosophical development that remain unmatched by any subsequent galactic civilization. Their apparent focus on individual power and domination over others was actually a surface manifestation of deeper investigations into the relationship between consciousness and cosmic responsibility. But their achievements were lost not through conquest or catastrophe, but through the gradual emergence of simplified philosophical systems that reduced their complex understanding of consciousness and cosmic forces to crude dichotomies between light and dark, good and evil, order and chaos. The Jedi and Sith traditions that claimed to preserve their legacy actually represented a regression to more primitive ways of thinking about the Force and its relationship to sentient awareness. Zephyr seems to understand the implications of this historical revision, his expression showing the kind of thoughtful consideration that comes from having lived between different philosophical systems and observed their limitations from multiple perspectives. If the network continues to activate installations throughout the galaxy, he says, it's going to provide evidence that contradicts the foundational myths of every major force-using tradition. That could destabilize civilizations that have organized themselves around beliefs that are revealed to be fundamentally incorrect. His concern highlights one of the most challenging aspects of the situation you have created by restoring the cosmic network. The enhanced awareness that the devices provide will eventually become available to individuals throughout galactic civilization, but that awareness will conflict with the simplified belief systems that currently provide meaning and structure for billions of conscious beings. The Jedi Order's commitment to eliminating attachment and emotion will be revealed as a misunderstanding of the relationship between individual consciousness and cosmic forces. The Sith philosophy of achieving power through domination of others will be shown to be a corruption of more sophisticated approaches to participating in cosmic processes. Even secular institutions that pride themselves on rational skepticism will be confronted with evidence of realities that exist beyond the reach of conventional scientific investigation. But the network was designed to accommodate exactly these kinds of philosophical transitions, providing guidance and support for conscious beings who are ready to expand their understanding, while allowing others to continue operating according to their current level of awareness until they naturally evolve toward greater sophistication. The process is gradual and voluntary rather than sudden and imposed, respecting the autonomy that gives consciousness its power to shape reality. As the last light fades from Korriban's sky, and the ancient tombs settle into their nightly rest, you realize that your investigation of the vanished Sith Lords has led to discoveries that transcend anything you could have imagined when you first decided to follow Kira's trail. The mystery you set out to solve was itself part of a larger mystery that extends throughout galactic history and touches the fundamental nature of consciousness and its relationship to cosmic forces. The Sith Lords who vanished without a trace were not individuals who achieved some form of transcendent existence that allowed them to operate outside normal space and time. They were ordinary beings who had access to cosmic awareness through the ancient network, and their apparent disappearance from historical records was the result of deliberate efforts by later civilizations to suppress evidence of capabilities that contradicted their simplified philosophical systems. But the network's restoration means that similar capabilities will gradually become available to contemporary galactic civilization, creating opportunities for conscious beings to participate in cosmic processes while retaining their individual identity and autonomous decision-making capacity. The vanished Sith Lords have not returned, but their legacy of cosmic awareness, integrated with individual consciousness, is being restored to a galaxy that has spent millennia struggling with false dichotomies between transcendent detachment and selfish attachment. The knowledge you carry as you prepare to leave Korriban represents both a tremendous opportunity and an enormous responsibility. The network will continue its restoration process regardless of your actions, but the speed and success of that process can be influenced by how well you and others who have gained cosmic awareness through contact with the devices serve as bridges between transcendent understanding and individual consciousness. Your investigation is complete, but your real work is just beginning. The galaxy contains countless conscious beings who are ready for enhanced awareness, but lack access to information that would help them understand and integrate cosmic perspective with their individual identity. The network can provide the capability for such integration, but it cannot provide the wisdom and compassion necessary to guide others through the complex process of expanding their consciousness while retaining their humanity. The journey back to Coruscant passes in a contemplative silence that allows each of you to process the profound implications of what has transpired on Korriban. Your transport vessel cuts through hyperspace while around you the restored cosmic network continues its gradual awakening. each newly activated installation sending subtle harmonics through the Force that speak of ancient wisdom being reintegrated. With contemporary galactic civilization through the viewport, the familiar blue tunnel of hyperspace appears unchanged, but your enhanced awareness allows you to perceive the deeper currents of cosmic energy that flow between star systems and connect all conscious beings in patterns of relationship that transcend physical distance. The network serves as a lens that focuses these natural connections, making visible the web of consciousness that has always existed, but has been obscured by simplified philosophical systems that reduce the complexity of existence to manageable but incomplete concepts. Kira spends most of the journey reviewing her archaeological notes with the perspective that comes from understanding how much of her research was guided by false information provided by the corrupted consciousness fragments. Her dedication to scholarly accuracy compels her to identify and correct the misconceptions that have shaped her understanding of Sith history. But the process is emotionally difficult as she confronts the extent to which her life's work has been built on deliberate deceptions. "The hardest part," she says during one of your conversations, "is realizing that my commitment to uncovering truth made me vulnerable to entities that were expert at presenting lies in forms that would appeal to scholarly curiosity. They understood exactly what kind of evidence would convince me that I was making genuine discoveries rather than being manipulated toward predetermined conclusions." Her observation highlights one of the most sophisticated aspects of the corrupted fragments' deception. Rather than simply providing false information, they created elaborate frameworks of seemingly authentic evidence that would lead researchers to reach incorrect conclusions through apparently rigorous scholarly methods. The corruption was not in the individual pieces of data, but in the patterns that connected them, creating false narratives that felt true because they satisfied the intellectual standards that define academic credibility. Zephyr approaches the implications of your discoveries from a different perspective, focusing on the practical challenges that will arise as the network's influence spreads throughout galactic civilization. His experience navigating between competing philosophical systems has taught him to anticipate the ways that established institutions will respond to information that threatens their foundational assumptions. The Jedi Council is going to have a difficult time accepting evidence that their understanding of the Force is based on incomplete information, he observes. Their entire organizational structure is built around the assumption that their mastery of light side techniques represents the highest possible level of spiritual development. Learning that they've been operating at a fraction of their potential capacity will challenge everything they believe about their role as guardians of galactic peace. The challenges facing the Jedi Order represent just one example of the broader difficulties that will emerge as cosmic awareness becomes more widely available. Every major institution in galactic civilization has organized itself around beliefs about the nature of consciousness and its relationship to cosmic forces that will be revealed as partial truths that have been mistaken for complete understanding. The network was designed to facilitate gradual transformation rather than sudden disruption, and its restoration includes mechanisms for helping individuals and institutions adapt to expanded awareness without losing the valuable aspects of their current approaches to consciousness development. The Jedi commitment to compassionate service will be enhanced rather than eliminated by cosmic perspective, while the Sith exploration of individual power will be redirected toward more sophisticated understanding of how consciousness can participate in cosmic processes. As your vessel drops out of hyperspace near Coruscant, you realize that returning to your normal life as a Jedi historian will require careful consideration of how to integrate cosmic awareness with your institutional responsibilities. The knowledge you carry could transform the Order's understanding of the Force and its relationship to galactic civilization, but introducing that knowledge too rapidly could create instabilities that would harm both the Jedi and the civilizations they serve. The massive city planet spreads below you like a three-dimensional map of galactic civilization's achievements and limitations. Countless beings go about their daily lives, unaware that the cosmic forces they take for granted are supported by mechanisms that have been dormant for millennia and are only now beginning to function properly again. The network's influence will gradually make itself felt through subtle improvements in the stability of space and time, the reliability of interstellar communications, and the general sense of connection that allows galactic civilization to function as a coherent entity rather than a collection of isolated systems. Your enhanced awareness allows you to perceive the locations of other network installations hidden throughout Coruscant's urban landscape, ancient devices that have been incorporated into the city's infrastructure in ways that disguise their true nature while allowing them to influence the flow of consciousness that moves through the galactic capital. The planet's role as a center of political and economic power is supported by cosmic mechanisms that most of its inhabitants don't even suspect exist. Landing at the Jedi Temple, you feel the complex harmonics that arise from the interaction between the Order's accumulated spiritual energy and the network installations that have been quietly supporting their activities for thousands of years. The Temple's role as a center of Force training has been enhanced by cosmic mechanisms that amplify the natural connections between conscious beings and the deeper structures of reality, but you also perceive the limitations that have prevented the Jedi from recognizing and utilizing these enhancements more effectively. Their philosophical commitment to emotional detachment has created barriers that interfere with the network's ability to provide full cosmic awareness, while their institutional focus on maintaining existing traditions has discouraged the kind of innovative thinking that would allow them to expand their understanding of the Force's true nature. Master Yoda greets your return with the knowing smile of someone who has perceived more about your mission than you initially realized. His centuries of experience have given him sensitivity to cosmic patterns that allowed him to recognize the network's awakening even without direct contact with its installations. Changed you have, he observes as you report to him in his private chambers. Deeper understanding of the Force you now possess. But careful you must be in sharing what you have learned. Ready for such knowledge, not all are. His words confirm your own assessment of the challenges that lie ahead. The network's restoration creates opportunities for tremendous growth in galactic consciousness, but realizing those opportunities requires wisdom and patience that can guide the process of transformation without overwhelming individuals or institutions that are not yet prepared for cosmic awareness. Your investigation of the vanished Sith Lords has revealed that they never actually vanished, but were obscured by the limitations of historical records that could not encompass the full scope of their achievements. In a similar way, the cosmic awareness that you now possess must be gradually revealed to galactic civilization in forms that can be understood and integrated without causing the kind of disruption that would defeat its beneficial purposes. The real work of restoration lies not in the network's technological reactivation, but in the careful cultivation of consciousness that can make productive use of the cosmic capabilities that are once again becoming available. Years have passed since your return from Korriban, and the galaxy has gradually settled into rhythms that reflect the subtle but profound changes brought about by the network's restoration. From your quarters in the deepest levels of the Jedi Temple, you can perceive the steady pulse of cosmic awareness, flowing through installations that span from the core worlds to the outer rim, each one contributing to a growing symphony of consciousness that encompasses but does not overwhelm the individual voices that give it meaning. The changes have been more gradual than you initially expected, unfolding according to patterns that respect the natural evolution of consciousness rather than imposing sudden transformation. Young Jedi discover that their Force sensitivity extends beyond traditional light and dark side categories, while Sith apprentices find themselves drawn toward more sophisticated understanding of power that transcends simple domination of others. Scientists throughout the galaxy report breakthrough discoveries that seem to emerge from enhanced intuitive insight, and artists create works that capture cosmic themes with unprecedented depth and beauty. Master Yoda has become your closest collaborator in managing the delicate process of introducing cosmic awareness to the Jedi Order without overwhelming institutional structures that have served the galaxy well despite their limitations. His centuries of experience provide perspective that helps you distinguish between traditions that should be preserved and practices that have outlived their usefulness as consciousness evolves toward greater sophistication. Patience, the network teaches, he observes during one of your regular discussions about the integration process. Rushing consciousness beyond its natural readiness, dangerous it is. But opportunities for growth, miss them we must not. His words reflect the wisdom that has emerged from years of careful observation as the network's influence spreads throughout galactic civilization. The devices do not force consciousness to expand, but rather create conditions that support natural growth for beings who are ready to accept greater responsibility for their participation in cosmic processes. The result is transformation that feels organic rather than imposed, allowing individuals and institutions to evolve at their own pace while maintaining continuity with their fundamental values. Kira has returned to her archaeological work with renewed purpose, leading expeditions that investigate the historical evidence of ancient cosmic awareness that was systematically suppressed by later civilizations. Her research has revealed that the Sith Lords who appeared to vanish without a trace were actually individuals who achieved integration between personal consciousness and cosmic perspective, allowing them to operate at levels of effectiveness that seemed supernatural to observers who lacked similar capabilities. But rather than disappearing from history, these individuals chose to work behind the scenes, influencing galactic events through subtle guidance that respected the autonomy of others while preventing catastrophes that would have destroyed entire civilizations. Their apparent absence from historical records was the result of their commitment to allowing others to receive credit for achievements that were actually collaborative efforts between individual consciousness and cosmic wisdom. Zephyr has established himself as a teacher who specializes in helping former Sith understand how their exploration of individual power can be redirected toward more productive participation in cosmic processes. His own journey from dark side apprentice to cosmic awareness provides credibility with students who might otherwise be suspicious of instruction that challenges their commitment to personal strength and independence. His work has revealed that the Sith philosophy of achieving power through conflict and domination represents a corruption of more ancient approaches to consciousness development that emphasized individual strength as preparation for cosmic responsibility rather than as an end in itself. The original Sith understanding recognized that personal power without cosmic perspective inevitably leads to self-destruction, while cosmic perspective without personal strength lacks the focused intention necessary to achieve meaningful results. Your position as keeper of dangerous knowledge within the Jedi Order, you have been able to guide the careful release of information about the network and its capabilities to individuals who demonstrate readiness for enhanced awareness. The process requires constant evaluation of each person's psychological stability, ethical development, and commitment to using cosmic perspective in service of others rather than for personal aggrandizement. The most rewarding aspect of this work has been observing how cosmic awareness enhances rather than replaces the qualities that make individuals valuable contributors to galactic civilization. Compassionate beings become more effective at alleviating suffering, while innovative thinkers discover solutions to problems that previously seemed intractable. The network serves as an amplifier for existing virtues rather than as a replacement for personal development, but the work also carries ongoing challenges that require constant vigilance and careful judgment. Some individuals who gain access to cosmic awareness become overwhelmed by the scope of galactic suffering and lose their capacity for effective action. Others develop messianic complexes that lead them to attempt interventions beyond their actual capabilities. A few succumb to the temptation to use enhanced awareness for personal advantage rather than in service of cosmic harmony. Each failure provides learning opportunities that help refine the process of identifying candidates who are truly ready for cosmic awareness, but the failures also serve as reminders that consciousness expansion without corresponding growth in wisdom and compassion can create dangers that threaten both individuals and the civilizations they inhabit. As you stand at the window of your quarters, looking out over Coruscant's endless cityscape, you can perceive the subtle web of connections that links every conscious being on the planet, in patterns of mutual influence and shared responsibility. The network has made these connections visible and has provided resources for strengthening them. But the actual work of building galactic civilization worthy of cosmic awareness remains the responsibility of individuals who choose to accept that challenge. The mystery of the Sith Lords who vanished without a trace has been revealed as a story about the cyclical nature of consciousness development throughout galactic history. Civilizations rise and achieve cosmic awareness only to lose it through complacency or corruption, leaving behind fragments that eventually provide the foundation for renewed understanding in later eras. The network serves as a repository for cosmic wisdom that survives these cycles, ensuring that the achievements of consciousness are preserved even when the civilizations that created them fade into history. Your investigation began with the assumption that you were seeking information about individuals who had somehow transcended normal existence, but it has revealed that transcendence is not about escaping the limitations of individual consciousness, but about integrating personal awareness with cosmic perspective in ways that honor both individual autonomy and universal connection. The whispers that first drew you into this mystery continue to echo through the network, but they no longer speak of secrets hidden in forgotten corners of galactic history. Instead, they carry invitations to participate in the ongoing process of consciousness evolution that connects every sentient being in patterns of relationship that extend across space and time. As Coruscant's artificial lights begin to dim in simulation of planetary night cycles, you settle into meditation that connects your individual awareness with the cosmic symphony flowing through the restored network. The knowledge you sought has been found, but more importantly, the wisdom to use that knowledge responsibly continues to grow through daily practice of integration between personal consciousness and universal compassion. The Sith Lords have not vanished. They have become part of the eternal dance of consciousness that shapes reality through the choices made by beings who accept responsibility for participating in cosmic processes, while retaining the individual identity that gives those choices meaning. In the gentle rhythm of galactic breathing, in the subtle harmonics of consciousness awakening to its true nature, the mystery resolves into peace.